Hi, this is Carlo of 4GQ TV, and I have my co-host Paul here with us. And we have some very special guests, and a book is about to come out. Can both of you please introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria C. Palmer, and I'm a nonprofit grant writer. And as of tomorrow, Tuesday, August 8th, I am also a published author. And my first debut book, co written by me and my co writer, Ruthie Robbins, On the Rocks, The Primadonna Story, comes out tomorrow. And it is about this man right beside me, Joseph Costanzo Jr. and his rise and fall in the restaurant industry with his esteemed restaurant, the Primadonna in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania.
Wow, it definitely sounds like I like the name already, Prima Donna. It sounds like a great place to go. Probably really good food too, I'm sure. And Mr. Costanzo, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the restaurant industry? What was your start?
Sure. I'm Joseph Costanzo Jr., and I'm the former owner of the Primadonna restaurant in McKees Rocks, Pennsylvania, which is really Pittsburgh, PA. The McKees Rocks is butted right up against the city, and it's about a mile from downtown Pittsburgh. I had the restaurant for around 20 years, and went from humble beginnings, to one of the best restaurants, Italian restaurants in the country. Um, Things were very, very humble at first until I got my first review on June 3rd of 88. And then things blossomed, and it just kept going and going, going. And the book is about, my life in the restaurant business. So everybody thinks it's very, very interesting. I guess it is. To me, it was just part of life. And I got into the restaurant business. My father owned a cocktail lounge in the Shady Side area of the city, which is on the East End. That's where I grew up. And, he didn't have any food, but my mother made hors d'oeuvres and stuff like that. So I had a familiarity with the bar, kind of restaurant type of business, and, in its environment. And a buddy of mine had mentioned, about there was a restaurant that might be for sale, but it was in the McKees Rocks area, which is in the west side. And it was a tough old steel town. And I really didn't know anybody in the area, but I was working at the Postal Service. I was a letter carrier and I was a delivery supervisor. And, I had 13 years there, and it was a very good job, but I just wanted to do something different. And so that's, what I did. We refinanced our house, my wife and I, and we bought this little restaurant that did maybe 4 or 5 dinners a night, and it had a liquor license but no bar. And so I put a bar in and tried to generate some bar business, and that's what kept me alive for the 3 years that I begged and wrote and called the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette dining critic to come down. And he didn't come down for 3 years, but my persistence actually got him down, because he basically said he was just tired of my letters and tired of my phone calls. So that's how it all started.
And Maria, what made you decide to kind of get into the story and write a book about this?
Sure. So this all started as a family history project some 17 years ago. And I never really intended at first for this to be a book. Just I knew that my dad had a very interesting life and I just wanted to write it down. But since I'm a writer by trade and I can recognize a hook to a really good story, whenever he started telling some of his story to me, I realized that this was something that not only our family should hear, but something of greater commercial value. So it all really started by small vignettes. And I would just say, tell me about a time at the restaurant, like the best night at the restaurant. Tell me about a sticky situation that happened at the restaurant. Tell me about this particular customer, or this person that worked for you, or this person in the neighborhood. And so that's how it all got started. And it just blossomed from there. And really, it wasn't until I invited my co-author, Ruthie Robbins, onto the project, who was my old middle school English teacher and my old AP English teacher in high school, until it really shaped into the project that it's become today. So it's had a lot of evolution. And ironically, my dad talked about yesterday at our big book launch event at the Heinz History Center in Pittsburgh how the prima donna grew in increments, and it grew through learnings, and little by little worked its way up to being one of America's top 10 restaurants. And the same thing with this book. It was definitely incremental steps, and it took a while to get it to the version that it is right now. But once we got it there and it all gelled and it all came together, and I think part of that was deciding which perspective we wanted to write in. And so we wrote in first person narrative perspective from my father's voice. And we are two female authors writing as a male. And so some of the critical acclaim that we're getting is that we're disrupting the literary form, because this is not how a traditional biography and memoir is written. So, that to Ruthie being, a lit major and 48-year English teacher is perhaps the highest compliment that we could get on this book.
So I have a quick question based on that you were basically writing the book from his voice, his point of view. At some point, did you go to him and say, "Hey, Dad, how would you say this, or how would you phrase this?"
Yeah, there was a lot of back and forth between the three of us, between Ruthie, me, and my dad. And, my dad, as you'll learn as you're listening to this interview, he exudes a personality, and you can almost, I love, Marilyn Atlas is a dear friend of mine, and she's a Hollywood executive, and she wrote this book called Dating Your Character. And really what she talks about, and obviously I'm not dating my dad, but she talks about whenever you write a character, especially for screenwriting, or which is what she does mainly, or for fiction, you want to know that character so well that you want to basically get into that character's head and mind space, and you think like the character. So Ruthie and I always joked around, those really popular bracelets. What would Jesus Christ do? Like the WWJC bracelets. Yeah. So we say the same thing, but we say, what would Joe Costanzo do? Or what would Joe Costanzo say in this situation? So we were able to really nail it through that, but we also were able to, consult with him and say, okay, we need a little bit more clarity on this story, especially dates. The really interesting thing, everybody has their gifts in life, and my dad has several gifts. But one of the really interesting and unique things, and I'm not like this at all, but he can remember years of exactly when things took place in time. So I can say to him, "Hey, when did you renovate the restaurant?" And like right away, he'll tell me what year it was without looking or any kind of records or anything. And that is incredibly helpful whenever you're writing a book, because it gave us not only a chronological order, but it was a way to be able to decide which piece of the puzzle we were going to talk about. Because in writing memoir, as you guys know, you're not writing a Wikipedia page. You're not, saying Joseph Costanzo Jr. was born on August 3rd, da, 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 da. He, was at this hospital and these are his parents. You're taking a segment from somebody's life, normally the most exciting piece of somebody's life, and you are narrating a story through that time. And so we go through about 2 decades of time. We start in 1986, well, maybe 85, right before he got into the restaurant. And then we follow him through the early 2000s. And there's a lot that takes place in that 20-year span. But it's the type of story that takes you on a lot of twists and turns, and, makes you laugh at times, makes you cry at times, and just gives you, I think, what people have said about it, and what we want people to take away from it is it's a really good feel-good story. It's a story of redemption, and it's an underdog story. And that to us is also, the highest compliment.
What would you say is one of the stories, maybe it's in the book or maybe you didn't have enough room in the book to put in, but what's one of the stories from the restaurant that really sticks out to you, resonates with you?
You want to tell one, and then I'll tell one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I said previously, it took me 3 years to get the dining critic from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette down to the restaurant, because McKees Rocks area was not an area that people came to. It was a tough neighbor, old steel town. People like to drink and fight. And I was there, and, I put the bar in, try to generate some business. But I finally got a hold of the dining critic. He picked up the phone one time because there was no recordings and what have you at that time, in 86, 87, 88. And I got him on the phone, and then I told him who I was, and I just said, hey, I have been sending you menus and what have you. I think the restaurant deserves, a review. And he said, you have a bar in McKees Rocks. I'm not coming down. And I said, well, if you do, you'll find a diamond in the rough. And you are wrong, because, I have authentic Italian people cooking the food. I'm first generation Italian, first generation American. And, my mother and dad are both from Italy. And he finally said, we're going to eventually come down because I want to just get you off of my back. So, in the next couple of weeks, we figured, he would come. So to make a long story short, the highlight is when we got the review. We got the, he was debating on whether to give us, he gave 5 stars, 5 forks really. And he was debating whether to give me 3 or 4. He said I deserve 4 after he, came down. But he said, I've never given a neighborhood restaurant 4. So I said, well, if I deserve 4, then maybe I should get it. And he said, if I give you 4, because he called me and asked me about some of the prices after the food. That's how I talked to him. He said, if I give you 4, you'll never handle a business. You're not, you're like nobody. So I said, I said, I will make you look good. I promise you. Blah, 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 blah. And he gave me the 4 out of 5. And it went from 10 dinners a night to 100 dinners a night. They were lined up on the street. That night, I mean, we were, when I found out, the paper came out the night before, like Thursday night at like 12 midnight, the paper came out, one of the editions for Friday. And, we went down to the Post-Gazette in the city and we got it. Or a buddy of mine did. He called me and I said, Danny, what did he give us? He said, he gave you 4. You couldn't have written it better yourself. And we went crazy. It was unbelievable, but he was right. We really couldn't handle it at the time. The next day they were lined up on the street. You're doing 10 dinners a night. Now we did 200 dinners that day, but people waited 2 hours to eat and another hour and a half to get their food. It was a fiasco. People were telling me, let me buy a bottle of Stoli vodka and I'll make my own drinks. I've been waiting 20 minutes at the bar. So that was an experience in itself. But eventually I stayed busy because I hired more people. Then eventually in a couple of years, I changed the menu, changed the wine list. And he came down and gave me 5 forks, which he only gave 16 5-fork reviews in 15 years.
Oh,
And then the business went from 100 dinners a night to about 180, 200. And then people actually thought the food was better when I got the 5-fork review. And then it was up to, on Saturday nights, I did over 300 dinners. A place holds 83 from 4 to 11. So and I was busy from June 38 to June 3rd, 1988 on. And, that was an exhilarating feeling. Because
That's
people would have
amazing.
never come back into the Rocks. They call McKees Rocks the Rocks. So outside the area. But after I got the reviews, they all came down, from all over some of the exclusive areas in the city.
It's amazing. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize too, when you have a restaurant like that that's bringing in that many people, it adds value to the neighboring buildings in the town, and it builds up more places in the town as well. More people want to come hang out.
Exactly.
So that was a really good thing that you got that 4 forks and then 5 forks. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I
So,
worked for. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Paul.
I was gonna say I worked for a restaurant for a few years. I was their bookkeeper basically, and it was the same thing. We'd have people waiting outside, but he's right. It adds to the neighborhood because while they're waiting, well, we've got a couple hours to wait, or we've got 40 minutes to wait.
Right.
Let's go over to this other store and check
Right.
that out. So
Yeah, there was a woman made pastries out of her house, and I convinced her to move next door to me, and she got so much business because people were waiting an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and she ended up getting business because of that. And she ended up making my tiramisus, with our recipe because we were so doggone busy. We made 99% of the desserts at the restaurant, but the tiramisu we had her make. And she said in the 20 years that she was in business, she never gave there was never GPS at the time. She never gave directions, to her place. People would call and say, "Where are you located in McKees Rocks?" And her answer would be, "Do you know where the Primadonna is?" 100, not 99%, 100% of the people would say yes. And she said, "We're right next door." So that's, so
There you go.
That's the situation. As a matter of fact, for this book launch we just had today, she had passed. Her name was Teresa. Her husband runs the bakery now. And I went down and got 20 dozen, cookies for the, and pastries for the, for the book launch. And I just said to him, "Nick, how much I owe you?" And he said, "You owe me nothing." I said, "No, this is like a $300 order here, you give me a couple, dozen cookies or something, but no." He said, "Joe, all the business that you gave us over the years," he said, "this is nothing." So I used Teresa's Italian Bakery for the 20 dozen cookies down at the launch.
Oh, that's amazing. So not only were you successful, you were able to bring other people into the success as well. So that's really,
Yeah,
that's,
just like you said, Carlo.
it's amazing.
Yeah, so I'll weigh in on my favorite part, and this was actually my favorite scene to write. So the restaurant, as my dad had mentioned at the top of the hour, was located in kind of a rough steel town neighborhood. The locals were really nice, salt of the earth kind of people, but they kind of have an edge to them, right? So sometimes people were not necessarily what they had seemed. And so one of my favorite stories to write was about a local guy that we'll call Johnny. And he had come in after hours because at first the restaurant was more of a bar. and he came in after hours. And this is at the time, the cops were kind of looking, at my dad's business because it was starting to get really, really busy. And he came in with a stripper one night, and they got into an argument. And
The stripper did.
yes, and he left without the stripper, and the
Oops.
stripper ended up passing out in the bathroom, and without her pants. And so she woke up, and my dad was there, and my dad knew that he had to get her back home, but he had to do so without the cops seeing her leave the building. And so there's this
This
very
is 4 in the morning, you know.
this very funny story of, how my dad gets her, first of all, to his car, and second of all, how he gets her home, and what happens whenever, and I won't give away the end of the story because it's really a funny story, but what happens eventually after all these funny little things that happen whenever he gets her back to her apartment. And these are some examples of the humorous yet edgy moments in the book. And it was just so much fun to write because, like I said, you're writing all different scenes. You're writing scenes that make you cry, ones that make you laugh, and this one really keeps you on the edge of your seat because you don't know how it's going to end whenever it does.
So throughout all the ups, it sounds like there's a lot of great ups in the story. What would you say when things started going bad, like or there was a downward spiral? What was something there that how would I word this? Something that is unforgettable, like something that was difficult to go through.
You want me? Or you want?
Doesn't matter. You want me to, you go.
All right. Well, I was, like we talked about humble beginnings, and then it went and, I got a review from the International Restaurant Hospitality Rating Bureau stating that we were the top 10 Italian restaurants in America, and I was one of the top 10 restaurateurs in America. And I got a Dorona Award, which was Distinguished Restaurants of North America. There was only like 700 all in North America. There was only 2 other ones in the city. And they were in like upscale neighborhoods. I was in a tough neighborhood. So I got that. There was a grand jury investigation on a couple restaurateurs, and they were in some hot water, and basically the federal government asked them if they knew anybody that may be evading taxes, and of course my name came up, and one thing led to another, and then when they came down to the restaurant to see me and tell me that they were investigating or whatever. And that was a very traumatic thing for me and the family because they kind of thought maybe I was an underworld figure, which I wasn't, and really didn't have any even underworld people loafing in the restaurant, especially after the big reviews. The bar closed at 12, not at 2 anymore. So that whole transition of never really getting in any trouble. There was 86 licenses in the Rocks. Everyone had a poker machine, everyone except me. Now, the poker machines were illegal, but I wasn't against them. It's just that it wouldn't fit into what I was trying to do. So, but people bribed me to put them in. I didn't do it or anything like that. So I wasn't that wasn't my nature to be a quote bad guy. But then when this all came down, then it was like I was a bad guy, so and that was tough on the family, on myself. But I have a strong personality and a good feeling of self-worth, and I more or less felt bad for my family. But yeah, that was kind of a struggle at the time, and it was like a 3-year struggle. What was yours, Maria?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say the same because whenever this all happened, we were really at the top of our game, you know, with the restaurant. He had just gotten the Gerono Award, which is, I always mess it up, so you can correct me, the Distinguished.
Distinguished Restaurants of North America, the Dirona Award,
And it was,
DIRONA,
so
Distinguished Restaurants of North America.
it was equivalent to a James Beard Award today, but back in the early 2000s, James Beard was just awarding chefs and not restaurants and restaurateurs and books as they are now. So really, it was kind of an inopportune time for all of this to happen, and it really caught everybody by surprise. And I was actually the person who answered the door whenever the federal government came looking for my father. And I was only 20 years old at the time. So for me, it was really a challenging time, and, you know, one that created a lot of resilience. But, you know, with every human being, there are things that happen in our lives that maybe are not perfect or not the way that we would want them to go, but it's not what you do. It's what you do as a result of those things that create the character and the person that you are, and what you learn from those things. And I think that one of the major themes of the book is that resiliency and that persistence, and really the comeback story of redemption and what our family went through. And you know, my dad actually pled guilty to tax evasion charges, and he wasn't trying to hide anything. He was honest. He accepted his fate and his time. And you know, we just really rose together and became stronger as a family unit as a result of all of this. And I think that, you know, that's a key piece that people are going to take away from the project. And so, you know, I would say to anybody that's listening, you know, if you're going through a challenging or a tough time, just ride it out and know that, you know, every day will get a little bit better. And it's not, I always tell my kids this every day. You don't want to be, well, you could be, but you don't need to be the smartest person in the room to have the most success. It's the person that sits there with the most resiliency, that's able to hold on and persist during those tough times. That's the person in the end that's going to be the most successful. And kindness and generosity always wins. And so anybody that has known my father for any amount of time, or has even just came to the restaurant from out of town, you know, one thing that always sticks with them is just his sheer kindness and generosity. And I think that, you know, that's a major theme of the book. So we're telling the entire story, and we're not hiding anything whatsoever. But I think that that's what makes the story a compelling one. And if we didn't tell it, first of all, it's not the full story and it's not genuine. And second of all, what does the reader learn by, you know, just reading all the wonderful things that somebody does? There's not that transformation. There's not the heroic rise and fall that makes a character compelling. And Joe Costanzo, my father's character, is very compelling in this story and very, very human.
And this might be a tough question, but I think it's something that people that watch this might be curious about. I'm not sure if it's in the book. But after all that you went through, how long did you have to go to prison for, and what was that like for you individually? As what was prison like for you?
Yeah, you're talking about a guy who, you know, never really get maybe one or two traffic tickets, you know, in my life. No detentions in high school and that kind of stuff. I was more an athlete. Yeah, I mean, it was tough. At the time, there was federal guidelines that Bill Clinton had signed, which now are unconstitutional. So stuff like what I did with the tax evasion, there's no jail time now. But when those guidelines were law, there was. So, it was just at the right place at the right time, Storm. So, if you evaded a certain amount of tax, you had to do jail time, which, like, I was like, you got to be kidding me. But the tax came, the charge came down through a federal grand jury, which wasn't anything on me. It was on someone else who mentioned my name, and they just kept it there. So that was another, perfect storm. So I did 5 months in federal prison, which is in Morgantown, West Virginia, which was great for me because it was close to my home in Pittsburgh, Robinson Township, right, right in Pittsburgh, suburb. And it was about, an hour and 10 minutes away. So my wife came down on, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and, friends and what have you, where other people, they had no visitors because, they were from California or whatever. So that was great. Growing up in a tough town also, the neighborhood in Pittsburgh that I grew up in was called Greenfield. And it was a steel town. Everybody, nobody's father had a college education. Everybody was middle class, and it was a tough neighborhood, So that really helped me, and it helped me in the restaurant business too. So when I got there, everybody said, "Oh, this is Club Med or whatever," I got there, and hey, there was very few people like myself. A lot of people that were drug dealers and gun runners and gang, motorcycle type of gang members, and a few people that were like professional people. Let's just say teachers or whatever. Very few. So it was a little shocking, when you went in there, but with my personality, I was able to meet people, and I try to make the best out of it, so I always had a positive attitude. People just would say to me, you're in jail here. Like, why are you always happy, And, I was always joking and say, well, I'm happy on the outside, crying on the inside, but it's just trying to adapt. And I just had the personality that I could adapt where other people really can't. I mean, there was a dentist in there that he was from the area. He knew who I was. And, I tried to help him out because he was so depressed. And, but for me, I'm not saying it was easy, but it wasn't real tough because there was no bars, it was like a dormitory with a bunch of guys in it. I mean, different units. There might have been, 10 units, with, whatever, 100 guys in each unit or something like that. So it wasn't like, bars and, cells. But so it wasn't that bad. But if you talk to some other people, they'd say it was terrible, So, but it was a transition for me. I never was in any type of jail, and guards treated you very badly. They looked at you as like lowlifes, and same with the wardens and that kind of stuff. No matter who you were, so and I met some really nice people, and people gravitated to me, and when they needed something, I knew some people. I can help people get shoes or whatever they needed. Not I didn't do it, but I knew people like in the laundry and this and that, and they helped out and did things. So I made the best of it, but it was tough.
I gotta guess that the food was probably one of the toughest parts. Given
the worst. I said somebody that there was like, it was like cardboard, thin cardboard breaded. That it was so. And I said to somebody, I said, "What are we eating here? What is this?" The guy goes, "That's a fish sandwich." It's like fish. And then I said, they had chicken wings. They said, right? I said, "Man, he doesn't look like chicken wings to me." He goes, "Hey, the box in the kitchen, someone said it was emu. You were eating emu." It's like, what the heck?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's like, I'm thinking to myself, and then there was one biker that was in there from the Outlaws, and then I get it. So he said to me, Joe, when you get out, what are you going to do? First of all, he said, what are you here for? I said, taxi evasion. He said, that's not even a crime. I said, what are you here for? He said, gun running, extortion, smuggling. It's like, so I said to him, I said, the judge said I was an honorable guy, I said, they put that in the paper. He goes, yeah, the judge said I was the most dangerous man in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and they printed that in the paper too. But anyway, these are the things that that we had to deal with, But so he says to me, "What would you want when you get out, food wise?" And I said, "Oh, I mean, I want a big steak. I can't wait, And he said, "Steak." I said, "What do you want, Brian?" He said, "I want a Whopper. I want a Burger King Whopper." I said, "A Burger King Whopper? You've been in here for like 6 years and you ain't come out, you want a Whopper." But that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
One man's.
Yeah, no.
Amazing. But
So-
it was challenging.
And these are all things that we discuss in the book. And actually, people have told us that their favorite parts are in prison because Joe does utilize a lot of his same restaurant skills of relationship building and, just being a very gregarious people person. Those all assimilate into prison. And so for one medical doctor, he is able to kind of help him through a really depressive time.
Well, I'm helping him. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And, other people, he, gets a little bit of a cultural experience. He even does a little yoga. So there are some very funny stories, but it's a very unique perspective because not everybody has that I've been to prison perspective. And, he talks about it for several chapters.
Yeah. If you were in the drug program in a federal prison at the time, you could get half of your sentence taken off, if you had a drug problem, And the attorney asked me, "Do you have a drug problem?" I said, "No." He said, "Because you can go in and maybe get 2 months." I says, "I don't have a drug problem. I don't want to do it, But it was a real tough program. So you were able to smoke at the time in federal prison at that time. So they wouldn't they made the guys not smoke. So if you got caught smoking, you got kicked out of the program. But guys were like addicted to smoking, right? I mean, so guys would come up to me, you have an allotment that you could, get things. Guys come up and say, "Joe, can you get me some cigarettes on your allotment and I'll give you some M&Ms, It's like, I said, "No problem." So I get the cigarettes. So the guy be walking past me and he go, "Joe, are you packing?" I said, "I'm packing." He said, "Good. Meet me around the gym, right?" I'd give him the cigarettes. He'd give me M&Ms or tuna fish or something. It was crazy. Welcome to prison, federal.
Slipping your M&Ms on the sly. Yeah.
The currency values is strange, M&Ms
Yeah,
are probably better than the food there.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. The currency at Morgantown at the time was bags, the bags of tuna fish. They were $1 a piece. So if you needed something to barter, like tuna fish, one tuna fish was $1. So I got tennis shoes, soft shoes from the laundry, cost me 13 tunas. But of course, you only, I think, a couple hundred a month that you could buy, your allotment. I can't even remember now. But yeah, so I used, some of that money because and then you could barter. I got my hair cut and the guy wanted 1 tuna, right? I give him 2 tunas. He says, "Joe, that's too much." It's like, I said, "No, I just keep it." It's like
the second tuna.
Yeah. And then my aunts found out that there was, tuna fish was the money. one of my aunts sent me like 4 bags of tuna fish. They send them right back to her, you know. She thought she was sending me money.
Oh wow. Oh, that is funny. That is a good story.
Wow.
So at this time, when you got sentenced and you went in, what happened to the restaurant?
The May 29th of 2002, that's when they knocked at my door. I actually went March the 3rd of 2005. It took like 3 years for all this craziness and all this pressure. So in the meantime, I ended up selling the restaurant, which, you know, for basically nothing for what it was worth. And I owned the building and I sold the building. And yeah, so so when I did go to Morgantown, the restaurant wasn't mine anymore, you know, so that's what I did, you know. I owed $112,000 over a 6-year period, less than like $18,000 a year. And I probably paid at least $150,000 each year to the federal government for federal tax, but they said I owed them extra 18 each year. So so I offered to, you know, refinance my new house because it was paid off, and pay them. And they said, no, this is a criminal investigation. We want to put you in jail first, and then we'll take your money off you, you know. So, you know, I offered to do it, but they didn't want to do it. So I ended up selling the business, which it hurt me so bad because I worked so hard to get it to where it was at. And then all of a sudden, the first night that I was, for close to 20 years, I mean, I was down a restaurant every night. So on a Saturday night, I mean, it was pumping. But the first Saturday night, I wasn't there. I was like climbing the walls at my house. Like, why ain't I down there? You know, it was so stressful not being down there. So that hurt me more than actually going to Morgantown. I didn't want to, there's no way I wanted to get rid of that. That was like my third child.
Yeah, it sounds like you put a lot of love into that restaurant from the
Oh
ground
my
up.
God. Yeah. You know, unbelievable. You know, I mean, in the beginning, you know, outside fighting on the street because people were hanging out on, I mean, like things that you know, very few restaurateurs actually do. But in the situation I was in, you know, guys coming in trying to sell drugs. And I mean, it's, you know, I had to deal with all that, you know, for those 3 or 4 years, you know, but I paid my dues, and now I was reaping. Now I reaped some of the fruits of my labor, you know, the kids' educations were paid for, and, you know, I had built a big house and, you know, drove a big car, but I was at the top of my game, and it all went away, and it hurt very much. You know, when you go from, you know, someone says to me, Joe, I'm down Saks Fifth Avenue. Hey, we know your wife's size. You know, this mink coat really. I said, how much is it? They say 13,000. I said, okay, I'll buy it. I was like that, and then I go from that, and I can't go to McDonald's to take my kids to breakfast, you know, because I have no money. So, you know, so I went from one extreme to the other. The one thing you don't want to do, guys, is you never want to have no money where you got to ask your wife for a 20, and then she says, but what do you want it for, Joe? And my wife's the greatest person on earth, but that's what you don't want. Can I have a 20, please, Donna? Well, what do you want it for? That's what you don't want. And that's what happened to me.
Yeah, no, that's true. I definitely agree with you. So is the restaurant still there today?
No, it lasted about, say, 5 years. And because, you know, the business was so booming, it took 5 years for him, the quality food went down or whatever. It took 5 years because it was so busy. And And now it's, the area is very depressed. There's a lot of violence in the area. It's like a little market, I don't know what they do in there, that kind of stuff. Kind of sad, when you had limousines up there. I even had in the Rocks, I call it the Rocks, horse and carriage, people waiting 2 hours. They were able to, I would pay for them to have a little horse ride, in the neighborhood. And it was, very safe down there at the time. But now, it's just hard to even go down there. It's a shame, what happened.
Paul, did you have any questions?
Okay, well, you mentioned limousines in the area. Were there any like celebrities that came in that stand out? That
Oh yeah, Tommy Lasorda came in a lot, from the Dodgers. Danny Aiello, the actor, Jamie Lee Curtis was in there.
oh,
I did a
nice.
to-go for Frank Sinatra. Pat
Patsy.
Sajak came in. All the Penguins and the Steelers,
Mm.
Pirates. They were constantly, Franco Harris. Good customers. I'm trying to. Joe Frazier, the heavyweight champion of the world. He came in.
Harry Carey.
Harry Carey, the announcer from the Chicago
Mhm.
Cubs, the New Jersey Devils, their team used to come in, when they came into town, St. Joseph's basketball, Rolly Massimino, the coach of Villanova, national champs, he used to bring his players in and bring himself in, just a lot of people. See,
Yeah.
the fact that the Rocks were like 2 miles from downtown Pittsburgh, butted up against the city. Anybody that came into town who were at the Hilton or we were anywhere, when people said to them, "Where is the best Italian restaurant in the area?" they'd say the Primadonna. And then, of course, when I found out about that, then I went down there and made sure a guy got a $50 gift card to come down and eat. And of course, everybody that came in that wanted an Italian restaurant, they came to Primadonna. But everyone was satisfied and everyone said it was one of the best, But see, it's, just how just doing business,
Yep.
And it was like a 7-minute cab ride, from the Hilton Hotel.
So great
into the
location.
Rocks.
Yeah, great location.
Yeah, it really was. It was a great location in like a bad neighborhood. But like, if people would have, emphasized the location, it would be like Malibu, because you're right on the Ohio River, but no one ever, the Rocks were so corrupt and, it was tough, I mean, 86 liquor licenses, everyone had a poker machine except myself. And then they were illegal, but, machine prostitution, drugs. I mean, it was all around there, it was crazy.
Marie, is there anything that you want to tell us about the book that maybe we haven't covered yet?
I think we've covered a lot of it. I would say, if you are looking for comps, I would say it is an edgy Cheers, and it's nonfiction, but it reads like fiction. So it's heavy dialogue. It's a lot of colorful characters. We actually have signed a non-exclusive shopping agreement for film and TV rights with 13 Curves Production, the director Amanda Raymond. So it does have some Hollywood interest. We are Amazon's top 100 in 2 categories, both the culinary memoir and also the true white crime category. In the culinary memoir category, we are Amazon's #1 new release. And just on Friday, I was named LA Weekly's top 15 author to watch in 2023.
Oh,
So
nice.
things are going incredibly well for the book. And, we just want to say thank you to everybody that's out there who has supported the story. It's interesting, the parallels of my dad's rise with the restaurant and this story. I was just saying in an interview earlier, this story was definitely not an instant success. This is a 17-year process. So many no's. We queried 265 agents. Out of those 265, 108 ghosted us, never said anything. 140 straight out said no. And 17 said that they would see more. And only one person, who happened to be our dream agent, decided to represent us. And that following year, when we went on submission to sell to the publishers, it was exciting for the first 3 months, and we got some close passes, but then, almost nothing at the 6-month mark. And as an author, if you reach a year on submission, your manuscript is pretty much dead. And we just squeaked by at 11 months, got an offer from Koehler Books, from John Koehler, and signed our contract back in October of 2022. And here we are. Tomorrow is our release. So it's been just a fantastic ride. And I would just say to anybody out there who has a dream, whether it's opening a restaurant or writing a book, you need to be your own biggest advocate and to never give up on your own dream, and always believe in yourself, because it can certainly happen. It happened for my dad, and thank God it's happening for my co-author, Ruthie Robbins, and myself.
Yeah,
Well-
you can buy the book on Amazon. You can buy the book on Amazon. Pre-order it now, but it'll come out on Tuesday. Any bookstore in America, you can order it. Barnes and Noble, you can order it, and you'll get it on the 9th. If you pre-order it before the 8th. So and of course you can order through the Heinz History Center if you're in the Pittsburgh area. So we were fortunate.
Ship it too.
Yeah.
Heinz will ship it as well.
Yeah.
They have some signed copies on hand. I think they have a couple hundred signed copies at
Nice.
the moment. So
Yep, my pre-order's in place. I just so you know.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
I did have a
And we
question.
really
So
appreciate. Yeah.
since it takes place around a restaurant, are there any recipes in the book?
Yeah, there actually is. There's right whenever the rise of the story, whenever my dad talks about that 4-fork review that happened, there was a spaghetti recipe that was included in one of the newspaper clippings, and that's in the book. I think it is pasta with bacon, but don't quote me on
Yeah,
that.
that's what it's called amatriciana. It's pasta with like pancetta, Italian
Right.
bacon, and onions in a red tomato sauce. Very good, yeah. And then after we got rolling, we also got a couple recipes in the New York Daily News, which at the time was the largest daily publication in America. So so we were very fortunate. Had a couple recipes in there.
Yeah, my claim to shame is I have the only Italian mother in the world who cannot cook. It's one of those.
Oh no. That's ironic, right? You know that.
Yep.
And a lot of Italian boys would say, could you drive me to the McKees Rocks Bridge so I can jump off?
Yeah.
That's funny, Paul.
But
My wife, who's a very good cook, she's taken a few gourmet cooking classes, and she's Irish and English. And she is a great cook, she really is. But when we first were getting married and we were young, she was 20 and I was gonna be 21 in a week after we got married in 1974. And my mother was showing her the sauce recipe, of course, like all Italian mothers do. And she said, well, you start off with this clove of garlic. And my wife said to my mom, what is a clove of garlic? You mean garlic powder? No. Oh, my mother goes, oh, no, I don't believe it.
oh,
And you were still allowed to marry her. I'm impressed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe because she was very beautiful. She was a flight attendant. And I guess my dad liked good looking women, I guess there's there's a trade-off, you know. Well, she can't cook, but she's a good-looking woman. But thank God my wife ended up being a great cook. and people that read the book will say at times, you know, I like Joe, I don't like Joe, but everybody says they like Donna, you know, for putting up with all this crap, you know.
Well, I want to thank you and Maria both for coming on and sharing your story. It sounds very passionate. I can't wait to read it as well. So I'm
Thank
excited
you.
for that.
Very
Thanks,
much, Carla.
And thank you, Paul. We really appreciate you guys having us on. It's been
Definitely.
really fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Really,
I enjoyed it a lot.
You know what? I actually feel like I know you guys. You know what I mean? I just met you like 5 minutes ago, you know, but you guys are really good people, and you could tell. Thank you so
Well,
much.